This is our final course for our product recommendations. Last week we have talked about how to do the data cleaning process for our data analytics. Today I would like to do the subgroup for each items and let you know how to deal with the data. Okay, so first we have to have a quick view for in the beginning. First, you have to stop the server in Google, okay? And then we have to import the required database and our data from your Google Drive, okay? Our online retail dataset. Also, you can download the dataset from UCI. I have talked before. Okay, so I'm waiting to import the dataset for analytics. Maybe it will take more than 1 minute to import the dataset. Okay, so right now I'm okay for the data import. So you may to check if everything is fine for the dataset. Okay, so how many rows? More than 541,000 rows, which is the transaction for this online retail. The basic information for the dataset. So you can see this dataset we call data frame, 资讯框. How many variables? There are 8 variables for the dataset. So you guys know all the variables meaning for this dataset. Head, the first 5 rows for your dataset. The last 5 records for your dataset. Columns, to display the column's name for our dataset. The dimension for our dataset. Shape. Also, we have talked about the descriptive statistic, okay, 叙述性的统计. So you can use the describe this function to get the descriptive statistic. So you can know the data, the range for the data. Okay, so you may find there has some missing value for the dataset. Also, we find the quantity, the minima for the quantity is minus, right? So it's cancelled. So for the first things we have to do is to delete the cancelled orders. Here is to find out where is the quantity is less than 0. The mass one, okay? Mass one is df dot location to find the locations. And also you can use this one, df, to check is anything the quantity is less than 0. You can get the same result. So you may find more than 10,000 for the cancel order. Okay, so you guys know. So right now, I'm using to ignore the cancel orders using these functions. Okay, so we cancel the cancel orders. And then we have talked about data cleaning. We also want to cancel the order, the customer ID with missing value. Here is to count how many missing value for customer ID column. Okay, it's 133,000 more than they are missing a value in the customer ID. Okay, so let us show the first 5 rows for the missing value. You can see here the customer ID are missing value. And we use drop NA to drop the data set with missing value. So you can see before we using the drop NA is these numbers, and we drop the missing value, so it will be these records. Okay, so we get everything right for our data analytics. So last time we have talked about to calculate how many records for each column, the unique. Okay, so you guys know. Okay, so for today's lesson, we are going to talk about the subgroup. This one, okay? Number 8, how to do group subtotal. What is subtotals? So the subtotal is you can divide each category value for their functions. Okay, so we call this group by functions. So we use the split, apply, and combine. 3 processes. First, we separate by the category for each column, and then we apply some function like summation, and then we put it together with the result. So we call it group by and use the split, apply, combine functions for our data aggregation and grouping operations. Okay, so let's stop here. Okay, so for this one, we may find our regular explorations. The column name for our data set. Show us the first 5 rows for the data set. The dimension. Okay, so what do we want to do for the next step? If we want to make the subtotal based on the total quantity, the total quantity for each invoice number. So we have to do the subgroup for invoice number, because one invoice number may be separate with several transactions. So we have to combine all the transactions with one invoice numbers. So we use the group. Okay, so for the first things, we have to group first. How do we use the group? Because we want to use this one, quantity, and group by invoice numbers. So you can get and we assign the result as a group by invoice number. And you can see here is a series numbers for group by. And we use the function to summation our invoice number. Okay, so here you may find for the invoice number 536365, this one, we sum up all the transactions up to 40. So this is a subgroup for these invoice numbers. So you may see how many invoice orders. There are 18,536 invoice numbers. So you can see here we use the subgroup with invoice number. Okay, so we use another function for count. What is count? Give me the transaction count. How many transactions for these invoice numbers? So for the first things, we do the summation for quantities. And for this one, we count how many transactions for each invoice number. Okay, so you may check if your subgroup is correct or not. So you can use these functions. You can use this function to filter with the invoice number with this one, 536365, this one, because we check the first column, this one, and we get the result for the invoice number with 536365, this one. So how many transaction for this invoice number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Count. So we use the count to calculate how many transactions for this invoice order. There are 6 transactions. And what is sum mean? Because we calculate with summation all the quantity for this one, quantity. So you sum these numbers, so you can calculate the summation for this 7 transaction. There, the quantity is 40, right? So you may check the other one with this one, 536367. So you can do it with the same things. Copy with my source code and just replace this one with this one. Just replace with this and you get the answers, right? So how many transactions for this invoice number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you may see how many, this one, 12, right? The summation for this one is 83. You may sum up the quantity for this invoice numbers. Okay. Okay, it's your turn to try with my question 13. $46, right? Sum for the summation for invoice number, this one. And for the account, how many transactions for this invoice number? Unique, so how many total invoice numbers? They are 18,536.